इसमें 2 मिनट let me see.
A very good morning to all the students from Sainik schools across the country. In light of the upcoming entry of girls in Sainik schools, we are delighted to be a part of the gender sensitization initiative which is happening in these schools. At the very outset, I would like to thank Sainik School Society and Colonel Rajesh Benda for helping us organize this event. And this event is being conducted by me, Rupa, and Prerna, my friend, who will be presenting on behalf of Ijaazat Foundation. We will be talking about aspects of gender, gender equality, patriarchy, gender representation, and so on. And so, hi everybody, and my name is Rupa Gogoi. I am a postgraduate in psychology, and I'm currently training to be a counseling psychologist. And with me, my friend who will be joining us in the later part of the presentation is Prerna. Prerna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning and Jai Hind. I am Prerna. I am a PhD candidate at Ahmedabad University and also a postgraduate in gender studies. It's a delight to be here, and Rupa, the stage is all yours. We'll just present our screen.
Right. So, Prerna and I, we have put together this presentation keeping in mind that, most of the things that we want to discuss here today are things that we did not get to talk about when we were in school ourselves. So, keeping that in mind, we have put together this presentation, we have put the content, prepared the content from that perspective and included topics around it. So, we really hope you enjoy learning through this presentation and are motivated to engage with it. On that note, let us begin. So, we want to start this presentation by talking about stereotypes. Okay? How often have you heard these phrases? Phrases like boys don't cry, pink is a girly color, it's not for boys, or girls are bad drivers, girls are weak, men are supposed to be the providers of the household, or that, women should only be mothers and housewives, things like that. We always hear these things. Or maybe you have seen that when a boy is not able to do well in a physical activity, he is teased as being girly or not manly enough. Now, I will give you an example from my own life. When I was 20 years old, I started to learn driving for the first time in my life. And each time I or a fellow female driver made any mistakes while driving as new learners, people around us would always comment something like, "Oh, you made that mistake because you're a girl." But each time a male passenger made similar mistakes, we would hear that, that's because it was a bad driver. And there are so many cases of major and minor accidents happening each day across the city and the country where the drivers are men, but we never hear anybody say that it was because they were men. And the assumption is that often is that all women are bad drivers, as if bad driving is something that is automatically ingrained in all women. Now, things like these are what we call stereotypes. Stereotypes are such generic statements about any group of people. It can be based on caste, class, religion, etc. And it includes things like saying that all people from this caste or this country or religion are similar. We all grow up hearing such stereotypes that people from this XYZ community are all dirty, or people from this country are all supposed to be rude, and so on. And in the same way, when we see gender stereotypes, it's about making assumptions that all people from a particular gender must behave in a particular way. And they can be both positive and negative stereotypes. Like girls are more emotionally mature is the positive one, but when we say girls are weaker, that's a negative stereotype. And the problem with stereotypes is that they are not true and they negatively affect all of us. For instance, take the most common stereotype of when we tell our boys that boys do not cry. Things like मर्द को दर्द नहीं होता, that boys should not show emotions and they should hide their feelings. We tell them that crying and showing emotions is a weakness. And this leads boys to grow up into men who have lost the ability to express their feelings or communicate better emotionally for others, with others, for emotional support. No, so you will see, like, for instance, that many of us have never seen our fathers cry or ask for emotional support. But does this mean that boys and men do not have feelings. No, right? Because we are all human, we all have feelings, we all need emotional support from time to time. But because we have created the stereotype that boys and men must be like that, they are not able to express this very natural part of themselves. And this also leads to more stress, more problems with mental health, and fear to ask for help when they need it. This is where I'd like to introduce our second topic called toxic masculinity. Now, the meaning of the word toxic is that something which is very harmful. And when you say toxic masculinity, it means things which it's an idea of masculinity about what men are supposed to be like that is so damaging to not just to men but to society as well. So, for instance, the stereotype that we are already discussing that men don't cry. It results in situations when boys and men are not able to seek help even during serious issues. So, for example, when they're harassed, many men might feel ashamed to admit it because they're afraid they will be teased that, oh, you got harassed by a woman, you were weak. Or, sometimes, many times we say that men are supposed to be the so called provider and protector of the household. And when such men they go into financial debt or such other issues and are not able to provide for their families, they feel bad about themselves, they blame themselves, and they feel like they're not man enough. Now, not being able to cope with their emotions alone, many men also might end up, trying to do suicide. In fact, suicide rates are higher for men in most parts of the world, and that's a huge problem. Moreover, toxic masculinity also has a negative impact on society as well. For example, because men learn that expressing emotion and crying is supposed to be weak, men also consider women who express emotion more freely than men to be weaker. So, because of this stereotype, men lose respect for themselves when they're emotional. And now, number two, they make fun of fellow men who show emotion. And thirdly, they do not respect women and call them too weak or too emotional. So you see how that one tiny common stereotype that boys should not cry leads to so many problems that come up in a much larger and social scale. And we must change this. We must understand that, emotions and expressing emotions are a part of life. It does not make us weak, it is what makes us human. And sharing our emotions with our loved ones is what makes us, in fact, emotionally stronger. Now, of course, boys don't cry is just one example. There are hundreds of such examples that I'm sure you must all be thinking about by now. But the point is that stereotypes create ideas in our mind about what we are supposed to be and not be like. From our childhood onwards, we are made to internalize and fit into ideas of how we are supposed to be to become socially acceptable. For example, the most common way in which this also happens is in our societies telling us how we should present ourselves. And here, let us talk about the very idea of masculinity and femininity as we understand it. Now, ask yourself this: what does it mean to be masculine? Or what does it mean to be feminine? What are the characteristics that immediately come to your mind when you hear these words? Now, I'm sure when I said masculine, many of you thought about strong, tall, muscular, aggressive, bearded men. And when I said feminine, you thought of calm, soft, gentle, fragile women. But really, look around you. Are all men strong, tall, and muscular? Or are all women soft, gentle, and fragile? No, right? And when I was a student of Hindi at school, I I learned that in Hindi language, uh, all objects are divided into masculine and feminine. Everyday objects like chair, table, everything has uh, is being described either as masculine or feminine. So we were taught that mountain or pahad is male and river or nadi is female. The grammar book said that all heavy and strong things are supposed to be categorized as male and all lighter things are categorized as female. So we have these ideas about what classifies as masculine and what classifies as feminine. But when we really look around us, we can start to question that idea. Like, why should a mountain be male or why should a river be called female? Did nature make them masculine or feminine, or is it us, humans, who have divided them in this manner? And as humans, we have also divided ourselves into masculine and feminine in the same way. That means, feminine would mean something like having long hair, hairless bodies, thinner and softer physique, smaller arms, and so on. And being masculine would mean the opposite of that. We already discussed how masculinity and femininity are also ingrained in our understanding of human qualities, that women are more gentle, better at looking after children, doing low impact physical activities, and that men are supposed to be emotionally less vulnerable, and so on and so forth. But is it really true? Have you seen men? Have you? I mean, of course, you probably have seen men who are very good at cooking, or women who are great athletes. You probably have seen women who have hairier arms, or men who cannot grow body hair. Take the example of two renowned personalities, Mirabai Chanu and Sanjeev Kapoor. Now imagine if Sanjeev Kapoor's parents scolded him for learning to cook because it's supposed to be a feminine job, or if Mirabai Chanu's parents did not allow her to learn weightlifting because it's supposed to be a masculine sport. Now, luckily for them, they were able to ignore such stereotypes and still pursue what they wanted to. But think about it, there must be so many people like them who want to do things they like a girl wanting to weightlift and work on bodybuilding, or a boy probably who wants to be a fashion designer, but they are discouraged by society. The girl, for example, could be made fun of, like, oh, you have built a body that is not feminine. You are now stronger than a boy, taller than a boy. Are you even a girl anymore? And many girls like that would be bullied. And bullying is such a common reaction when people do things that society thinks are not appropriate for them based on their gender. We will talk about bullying later in detail in the presentation. Prerna will be talking about it. But for now, you can understand the concept that how going against the tide always makes people bully you or harass you in many ways. The point I'm trying to make is that by birth, nobody automatically fits into the perfect definition of masculinity and femininity. By birth, nobody is masculine or feminine. It's the society that tells us that if you are born as a male, you must have these masculine characteristics, and if you are born as a female, you must have these feminine qualities. I think this is where we need to discuss another important concept, which is the difference between two words. Those are sex and gender. Now, sex is what is assigned to us at birth by a doctor based on our genitals. So, based on what our genital structure is, we are classified by them as either male, female, or intersex. Gender, on the other hand, is what we have been discussing before this, the concept of masculinity and femininity. That is the social expectation of how males and females are supposed to look like and behave. That is gender. So, sex is the biological part, and gender is the socially constructed or the psychological part. Now, scientifically speaking, being female does not automatically mean being feminine, and being male does not automatically mean being masculine. Those are more or less things we learn through life. Just like rivers and mountains are not masculine and feminine, we as humans are also a wide variety of people of all shapes and sizes and colors and textures and different emotional and behavioral qualities that has nothing to do with being male or female. In fact, scientifically, we know that for a baby to be born as a male, it must have XY chromosomes, and to be born as a female, it must have XX chromosome. That is something we learn in biology. Later on, if you haven't learned it already, you probably will. But did you know that actually in nature there are at least 16 variations in chromosome pairing that occur naturally? So some people are born with chromosomes that do not fit perfectly into either male or female category. Or, there will be people who have male like anatomy on the outside, but their internal organs are structured similar to a female anatomy, or vice versa. Now, there are many such variations that occur in nature which we do not get to study about or we do not talk about because these are considered taboo. In fact, when doctors assign your sex at birth, when they either term you as a male, female, or intersex, many doctors still do not agree on what should qualify as intersex. So everything that they cannot decide whether to categorize as male or female, they put it into the category of intersex. And because there are so many various types of bodily structures that naturally occur, the definition of intersex is not simple. And all people who are categorized as intersex do not have the same physiological buildup. In fact, many people who are assigned male or female sex at birth may later develop biological characteristics that we understand as being intersex. Many people might even go their whole lives not even knowing about it. So, what do we understand from this? That the definitions of male and female are not well defined. Even in nature itself, humans are not born as either only male or only female, and we have varying degrees of maleness and femaleness in us, both biologically and anatomically, as well as in terms of behavior and characteristics. So, it is only largely that people are classified as male, female, and intersex. But technically, humans are more varied than that. When we are assigned a specific sex at birth, we are also comfortable performing the gender role assigned with it, then that is called cisgender. So it means that if at birth I was declared a female based on my anatomy, and if later on as well I feel comfortable performing femininity and being a woman, then I would be called a cisgender person. Cisgender people fit perfectly well. I mean, not perfectly, but they fit most comfortably into societal norms. They fit into the societal norms more easily than other genders. But there are so many other possible genders. In fact, it is not necessary that our sex and gender should match. For instance, there might be people assigned male sex at birth, but who grow up feeling like they're more like a woman on the inside. So psychologically, they might feel like they're female, even though they have an anatomy which we consider to be male, or vice versa. These people are usually called transgender. They often do not fit comfortably into society's ideas of male, female, or masculinity and femininity, and hence they might often be mistreated by society. There are also others who feel like they are varying degrees of maleness and femaleness. They can't define themselves as being either only masculine or feminine. They feel like they uh, are they are a degree of masculinity and femininity that is not clearly defined. And we try to understand these genders today as being non binary. That is, gender that is not either male or female. It's not on a binary, but something on a spectrum. So on the screen, you can see this huge colorful circle, and this is the spectrum. Spectrum is like the colors of the rainbow. Okay, so there are so many of them, right? Not just seven colors, but hundreds of different shades between those seven colors itself. And all the colors merge into each other and create the rainbow. In the same way, humans and their gender is also not like two fixed colors, but like the colors of the rainbow, full of variety. Now we'll stay on this slide for a while and we'll talk about how the idea of the spectrum is also being adopted in psychology now. For instance, before we thought that disorders are, you can have depression. If you have one, two, three, four symptoms, these symptoms, if you have, then you have depression, or if you have these symptoms, you'll have anxiety. But now we are understanding that even our mental disorders or our illnesses, they don't happen on a fixed criteria like that. They happen on a spectrum. So a person at any time, like if their genders could be at any point in the spectrum. It could be one shade of red, or another person could be another shade of red, or another person could be even more shades of color. So the point is that the way we occur naturally in the world as humans, we are full of variety and we cannot be put into boxes. And we must be respectful towards these individual differences and never make fun of others for not fitting into the artificial male female masculinity femininity category. We must also try to be kind to ourselves and not force ourselves to fit into these norms. It is okay for you to like whatever you like, do what you like, wear what you feel good about wearing, and express your gender identity in a way which feels comfortable to you. In psychology as well, in fact, initially people who did not fit into these binaries where they were considered abnormal. So they were given treatments like patients were given electric shocks, these patients, and they were forced to change, and they were also given damaging medicines. And if we do those things now, we'll be punished heavily by the law because these are human rights abuses. But these were common practices before, so for people who did not fit into these social categories of male female. And these people, we call them queer people now. But now, as a student of psychology, we have learned about how much has changed in the discipline of psychology itself and even beyond that, so that we can include all the people, all kinds of people in our understanding of humanity. In the same way, all of us must change with the times and learn to grow our minds and be more aware of the world around us and our shared human existence. Now, before we move on to the next topic, you can pause here for a while, or if you want to stay with the topic a little longer. In fact, I encourage you to read more about gender differences and the gender spectrum to understand it better. There will be more things discussed on by Prerna later on in the second part of the presentation. But for now, if you have any questions as well, you can comment as and when you like. Moving on, we will talk about the next topic, which is patriarchy. Now, what is patriarchy? In Hindi, we call it Pitri Satta. So, patriarchy is a historically prevalent social system which favors men and allows them more power. So, you will see that historically men have dominated most fields, be it education, politics, property ownership, and so on. So, when men have more control over these important aspects, they automatically gain more power and authority over everyone else. So, these are public aspects of our life. So we see that there are more male figures in the public area, such as more male politicians and lawmakers, more male figures who go on for higher education. And traditionally, property was also transferred. Even now, it's transferred from fathers to sons in many societies. And families prefer to send their sons for higher education while they prefer their daughters to get married. Many families still practice female infanticide, where a female is killed at birth itself, because of which the number of males are much more higher than females in many countries, and that's not normal. Patriarchy is also visible in violence against women and other genders. For instance, the cases of harassment and rape are so common that we hear about it every day. In fact, do this thing. You should ask any woman you know, be it a sister, a friend, a partner, or even your mother's, and you should ask them about their experience of it. And you might even be surprised to know that they all might have stories to tell you about incidents where they felt threatened or were harassed and mistreated by men. Now, most of you who will be listening to this presentation will also be male students. So we think that it is even more necessary to discuss this. Because you see, when we were in school ourselves, me and my friend as girls and many other girls, there were times when we wished that, our male friends would have been more sensitive and treated us with more respect. But nobody really taught us how to understand the opposite sex and how to understand our differences. And so we did not learn to respect each other's differences very well. I remember an incident at school when I was simply walking on the corridor and two male students were talking loudly among themselves about my body in a very disrespectful manner. Now I heard it, but I was too scared to react because most girls are taught to keep quiet and ignore when such cases of harassment happen, which happens actually on an everyday basis. And in fact, people end up getting used to it. And when this incident happened, I was 14 years old and now I'm 23. And probably those boys have forgotten the incident by now. I mean, they may even have grown up to be more respectable human beings. But for me and so many girls like me, we still cannot forget how much these incidents end up affecting us. The first time I was harassed in a public place, I was only 11 years old, okay? And many of my female friends have similar stories when they were very young when they got harassed. And this affects women psychologically for the rest of their lives. Society also tells girls to keep their head low and just bear with these incidents. Or, they tell us that we need to learn martial arts and be more careful and dress up in specific kinds of clothes and not go out alone and so on and so forth. But is it really women's fault for being harassed and abused? Because nobody tells us that we should teach boys to be more respectful, that we should teach more and more men to be better human beings. And this patriarchy is For this reason, a huge problem that affects society in many ways. Because when men have power, when anybody has power, it allows more chances for them to abuse that power. Okay? For example, many women from older generation, from our mother's generation, they never had access to education. Therefore, they could not get their own jobs and were often married off at a young age. And because they did not have either the power of education or financial independence, many such women were also trapped in the marriages where they were sexually harassed, or abused by their own in laws and husbands. Now, this power comes with the ability to gain education and be independent and freely work without fear. But most women do not have that because our societies are generally patriarchal. They prefer men, they give more power to men. Even me and my friend, we are born in families which have educated us and we'll probably get our own jobs. But we still do not feel safe as women, be it in the street or in the workplace or even online on the internet. There are often many scary messages from strange men on the internet who choose to be rude or inappropriate on any day for no reason at all. And many girls are scared to even post stuff on the internet for this reason, because there are very few spaces, physically or virtually, where women can feel truly safe and respected. This fear and lack of power is the result of patriarchy. It is patriarchy that tells us that women should stay at home, women should dress in a certain way, men should dominate women, and so on. The stereotypes we had been discussing so far, they are also a result of patriarchy. And you saw how damaging they are to society. But all of you who are listening, I hope that you will be different kinds of men as you grow up. I have been told that many of you will go on to join the army. And I believe the army is not only about protecting the country, but it is also about caring for and respecting the people around you, including women and everyone who is different from you. And strength is not only about how much weight you can lift, but also about how much kind you can be, how sensitive and understanding you can be towards others. And we all need to learn to leave behind these old fashioned stereotypes and concepts and try to bring more equality, not just outside, but also inside us in our thoughts, in the way we behave with our friends, and so on and so forth. Now, because patriarchy has been prevalent for so long, for many, many years, women have been trying to fight for more equality. They have been trying to balance the power so that they also can gain some power and can exercise their rights. This is where the feminist movement comes in. So, this is the next topic, which is the feminist movement. Now, the feminist movement refers to all such struggles, mostly by different kinds of women throughout history, to demand for gender equality. It might even include your grandma, who may never have heard the word feminism, but she might have fought against uh, the rules and tried to gain education and tried to be independent. Even she would be a feminist. So you might have read about social reforms in history for removing female infanticide, sati practices, dowry practices, and so on. These are all parts of the feminist movement. Most recently, you may have heard about the Me Too movement, where women started talking about their individual life stories of harassment and abuse and so on. So they were trying to use the platform of the internet to bring across their voices and to tell their story. The idea of the feminist movement is thus to challenge the patriarchal system and bring more gender equality. Feminism asks for equal educational rights, equal wages, and it wants to make public spaces safer for women and all other genders. Feminism also fights against the negative effect that patriarchy has on men themselves, such as allowing men to get rid of toxic masculinity and leading more emotionally healthier lives. It is also a fight against gender stereotypes and such gender inequalities. Now, Prerna will add more to this topic. She has a range of things that she wants to talk to you about, and I will now hand it over to Prerna, who will take the presentation on forward from here onwards. Prerna, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rupa, for such an amazing set of resources that you've given us and the definitions that you've given us about stereotypes, about the gender spectrum, about how we have to fit in these stereotypes, but we should not. We usually do not, but we are told to fit into these stereotypes. And then about patriarchy, the system that is making us fit into all of these boxes and categories. And then the feminist movement that you've brought up, which has been fighting towards not just equality for women, but equality for all. Now, I would like to bring about the fact that feminism as a word might sound like it works towards just equality for women. But what it does, what it wants to do and aims to do, is it wants to bring equality for everybody. It wants to make everybody equal in the society. And so, I would like to show you this picture that we have in front of us. While equality means making the same platform for everybody, whatever their height, in this the picture on the left, the picture on the right shows us that equity helps us make space and make things equal so that people can easily have access to whatever they want to, right? But if you see clearly, this picture also is a little unequal in the way that there is no woman in this picture, there is no person with disability in this picture, there is a child, a boy, and a man. So I hope that, I mean, the whatever Rupa has told us is working out in its own way to show you that how some portrayals can also be unequal, right? We might be seeing, oh, this is equality and this is equity. We are getting the point is getting across to us. But when we look at it closely, we can see that there is no girl on the field. If you can see, what do you imagine? Who are the players who are playing? Question this in your mind. Who is it that you're imagining is playing on the field? And that is where things that Rupa has talked about should keep playing in your mind. Are we thinking about equal spaces, or are we just looking at concepts as they are and we're not putting our mind to it? This exercises was basically to make you learn and to gather information about how you have perceived whatever Rupa has told you. But just like this, there are a lot of media influences from movies that we see. We all are such huge fans of Bollywood. But do we notice how women and men and other people are portrayed in the movies? While women are shown to like pink, to love makeup, to go out, to paint, to love flowers, men are, usually bent towards liking blue, being more strong, being engineers, earning more money, and all of that. But do we question that? Do we question how I'm sorry, do we question how these portrayals might also affect us in our own mind? We see friendships happening in the movies and we think, we create a rosy picture of, this is how friendships are going to be for me, we are going to be friends forever. But do you think that you're going to be friends, you will have those friends forever? And even if those friends stay with you, do you not have fights? Do you not have arguments between yourself? That means that whatever is being shown to us in the pictures in media is a rosy picture that is being painted. And it is something that stereotypes are being fed to us. It is a way in which we can think about stereotypes. But look at a movie like Queen, where the character played by Kangna Ranaut goes out and goes on a solo trip across the world. Does that not happen in our usual world? Do men not cook, like we talked about Chef Sanjeev Kapoor? Or do women, are women not strong, like we talked about Mirabai Chanu right now, didn't we? So we need to keep questioning ourselves and questioning what we are perceiving. And as boys who are studying in Scenic school, we need to know where we are, making assumptions about other people. So we need to know that boys can also like pink and girls can like blue, and we can all play with toys and dolls and robots, and we can all build things together. So it is really important that we keep in our mind, as the prime minister announced on the Independence Day parade at the Red Fort, girls are going to enter Scenic schools. We need to know that all of us are equal and all of us are able, we will be able to do everything that we want to and anything that we set our hearts to. Another thing that feminism does is recognizing not just stereotypes and how they affect us, but also recognize that there are many genders. There is just no boy there or girl, just no man or woman, but there are other people like Rupa talked about. There are transgender people that we usually think that they are on the road and they belong to a certain community. But trans people are the ones who do not feel like the person that they were born as, the gender that was given to them as by the doctor. And working feminism working towards it has helped us recognize where we are lagging. So recently, only in 2020, we heard that Delhi Metro, the Noida Metro Rail Corporation, actually opened a metro station called the Rainbow Metro Station, where the staff belongs to the transgender community. And this is what we call recognition, recognizing and working towards creating an atmosphere where everybody can feel like they belong over here, right? When we recognize and when we say that, no, these people exist, that is the first step towards bringing an equitable world, an equal world for everybody, not just for men and women, but also for people who do not lie in the categories of men and women. So I would like to say that feminism includes all genders, and it helps us navigate, it helps us break through stereotypes. It helps us say that, boys can also like flowers, boys can also like dance, boys can bake cakes, they can be scared, they can be feminist as well. So the fact that you're all here and listening to us also says that you want to listen and you want to learn, and you're also a feminist in that way, right? The next topic that I want to talk about is something that we think happens only with women. We think that, like Rupa talked about, how women around us, or us ourselves, Rupa and I ourselves, have seen behavior towards us that is not right, that is not appropriate, and we call it gendered violence. Girls are called out for their clothes, they're called out for going out at late at night, they're called out, they're called out over their bodies. But we need to question if, and this is a huge issue, but we also need to question if this is, if girls and women are the only one who are being targeted. And here I would like to say that violence does not have a gender. Violence can be done to boys and other people as well, to trans people. Would they, if they do not belong in the whole category of man and woman, would they not be facing violence or harassment? It can happen against anyone. Violence does not have a gender. You are boys. Tell me, how many of you have seen fights amongst yourselves? So basically, it means that violence does not have a gender and it can happen against anybody. And in this regard, I would like to talk to you about what sort of, is there any form of violence that we and you can face as children? According to the law, and it is important that we highlight this over here, a child is somebody who lies in the categories of different ages according to the law. Like the Marriage Act says that a girl below 18 is a child and a boy below 21 is a child. The POXO Act says that all children of all genders between the age of 0 to 18 are children, will be considered children. And look here, if the law was not recognizing that there are no many genders, they would have said 0 to 18 for all boys and girls. But what does the law say here in the POXO Act, in the line for POXO Act? 0 to 18 for all genders, which means there are just no two genders, there are many genders. But here we are also talking about what is child abuse, what kind of violence can happen to children, right? Child abuse can be physical, it can be sexual, it can be emotional, it can be contact based when people touch you, and it can be non contact based when people are talking to you but they're talking in a very bad manner. Government data suggests that 40% of children are vulnerable to threats such as trafficking, homelessness, forced labor, drug abuse, crime, and they need protection. So we need to realize that child abuse is not just about being talked to in a bad way or being touched in a bad way, right? Being touched in an unsafe way. It is also something that can happen without contact from afar. It can happen if somebody is staring at you. That is also abuse in a way because it is making you feel uncomfortable. Why do children not report? There are a lot of instances of child abuse happening, but oftentimes children do not come up to their parents, to their teachers, or to any elder to talk about having been harassed. And there are a lot of reasons for it. They are afraid that they might not be believed. They feel that they have done something wrong. They feel like they should not talk about it because of the stereotypes that boys don't cry, boys don't feel bad. The grooming that has happened, the stereotyping that has happened also sometimes stop them from talking about it. The person who has harassed them maybe has manipulated them in a way. Maybe they will give them something or tell them that we I will go and complain about you instead. They fear, children fear that they will hear back. They are not being attended to by the adults around them, and they are not encouraged to talk about their feelings, like we talked about in the stereotype section, that we are told that we should be all strong. Even as girls we are told, tum ladke jaisi strong bano, tum mera beta ho. I have been told that you are a you act like a boy, you're so strong. But we should be talking about our feelings. We should be talking about when we are not feeling right, when we are feeling uncomfortable. And so, here I would like to talk about the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act 2012, which is called POXO Act, which is the act that we talked about, which says that a child is anybody who is in the ages from 0 to 18 and may belong to any gender. So, this act is gender neutral and it looks towards providing justice to children who have faced abuse in any form: physical, sexual, emotional, contact, or no contact. Before we move into the nitty gritties of what the POXO Act is or anything, it is important to know for us as children that we can go and talk to anybody that we want to. But there should be, we should be aware of what is happening around us, right? It is futile that I talk about whatever the law is, because you're all students in scenic schools. But you should know that you should be able to talk to someone. You should have an elder in place whom you can talk to and can be comfortable sharing your feelings with, and that may be anybody who you feel comfortable with. What should you as children know about harassment, and what should you do when if you feel harassed and if you feel uncomfortable? First, you should have information about yourself. You should remember your address, you should remember your parents number, their name, basic details about yourself, so that in case you feel uncomfortable and there is no known adult around you, you can go and tell an unknown person that this has happened with me, and this is my address, this is my parents number, can you help me with this? And you should know about yourself. This is how we equip ourselves with information. Second, we should know about safe and unsafe touch. Oftentimes, we are told that if we are touched on certain parts of the body, they are good touch and bad touch. But what I would like to tell you over here is, if you're touched, even if you're touched at your on your hand or on your fingers, and you don't feel good about that touch, that is not a safe touch. We need to know about a safe touch, and we need to talk about an unsafe touch. And if you don't feel like, if somebody is touching you and if you don't feel comfortable, that is not a safe touch. It should not feel, it should not be taken as it is ki, okay, they are touching my finger, that's okay, it's just touching my fingers. No, you're feeling uncomfortable, and so it is an unsafe touch. That's about it. In case you're feeling uncomfortable, and if somebody says, does this, touches your hand, and you're feeling uncomfortable about it, you should know that you can always say no. You can tell them, no, I do not feel comfortable when you're doing this, when you're brushing past me, or when you're touching me on my shoulder as well. You can say no. No means no. Okay. The most important thing, in case you feel like some adult, anybody, and this can be anybody or any person at all, if you they can be your sibling, they can be your relative, they can be your parent, they can be anybody from your school, on the staff, or even some of your friends who are your age or grown up. In case you feel uncomfortable in their presence, in case they are touching you in a way you're not comfortable, you're not feeling comfortable around them, there are three steps that you have to do. One is no. You tell them, no, I do not like this. I don't want to go with you. I do not want to talk to you. You cannot come with me. Please don't touch me like this. There can be different ways of saying no, right? And the second part is you go. You walk away from there. You walk away from a place where you're feeling unsafe and uncomfortable. You first say no, and then you go. And then You go to a trusted adult or a person that you trust, and you tell them about what has happened, why you were feeling uncomfortable, if you were feeling unsafe, and who was this person. And you will be helped in a way that can help you feel better. So the three important parts are know, go, and tell. Keep this in your mind in case you're feeling unsafe, uncomfortable anywhere, absolutely anywhere at all. For children in India, we also have a child helpline that has been made. You can easily remember this by going reverse from 10. 10, 9, 8. 1098 is the child helpline number. It is open at all times, and you will be able to talk to any to trained people in case you're feeling unsafe anywhere. In case you do not have an adult you can go and talk to, you can always take the phone and dial 1098 1098. All right, if you are feeling uncomfortable in any scenario, and it is open throughout the day, so you can call anytime during the day and somebody will help you through a situation. So remember, know, go, and tell. Safe and unsafe touch, 1098. um, from this we move on to a topic that we do not talk about, but it affects us and our choices we make, and how we perform, and are able to do things. We talk about mental health over here. um, what do you feel when you have fights with someone? Do you feel uncomfortable? Do you feel bad at the back of your head? Are you able to function properly? I mean, if you have a test right now and when you're going to your school, you have a fight with your friend, will you be able to concentrate on that test in a better way, in a way that would have been if you did not have a fight with your friend? What if you listen to some comments about yourself? You're walking and somebody says something about you, something about what you're wearing, something about what you're talking about, something about how you talk. Will you feel good about yourself, and will you be able to do better on your test, or will you keep mind thinking about these comments? What happens when you somebody tells you that that boy has long hair, and he's looking weird and everything, these stereotypes that we talk about? Do you feel comfortable if somebody makes stereotypes about you and tells you that he's not uh, he they don't talk well about you? Would you feel good about it? So think about, if you're not feeling comfortable in any place, you thought about fights, you thought about comments, you thought about stereotypes. But if you're not feeling comfortable in the presence of one person, and they are in front of you and you have to give this test, will you be able to perform good on this test, or will your mind be going in different places? Think about if somebody would have gotten harassed. If we just talked about harassment, and it is something that can happen with anyone, right? If somebody has felt harassed by anyone, if a friend even comments by a friend, even fight with a friend, and if you don't feel comfortable in that environment, can be called harassment. So do you think that harassment can also affect your mental health? All of these factors and many more, if you're not feeling good, if you're not feeling happy about something, if you have listened to something that somebody has talked to you about, go on and affect your mental health. And I am talking about this here because oftentimes we make comments on people. As students, we are students, we can talk about anything. We are not aware of a lot of things, and we make comments on somebody that may affect them, and they will be thinking about it for their whole life. Like Rupa, my friend, talked about, she was harassed when she talked about being harassed when she was 11 years old. And she remembers the day crystal clear in her mind, and while the people who harassed her might not even remember it, but she remembers it. So something, try to recall something that somebody would have said to you. Maybe it would be a parent, a friend, a relative, or maybe a sibling. Do you not have it in mind? Do you not carry it with yourself? Us time pe at that point of time somebody told me about this, and you remember it. So of course, if you say something about someone and they come to know about it, or even if you're saying it behind their back and you think that they will not get to know, and what if it reaches to them? What if they get to know about it? Will they not be affected? You, as children and students studying in scenic schools, have fostered a are working in a competitive environment. You all want to join the army and do good jobs and earn money and everything. But while doing all of that, while doing sports, maybe if somebody is not able to do as well as you do you not make comments about them? Try to think about, if you have made comments about anybody, think think about how they might be feeling and put yourself in their place. So mental health is something that is affected by everything around you, and mental health impacts your health, it impacts your performance. Like I gave the example of the test. Think about listening something about yourself from somebody and going and performing on that test. Surely you will not be able to do well on the test, right? So you need to think about how all of these comments may make some other person feel. And what we often do is we think about, ye normal hai, this person is normal. But what is normal? And everything around that we feel is, this person is doing this person is doing this differently, this person is doing this in a weird way, in a weird manner. They are not fitting into the ideas. That boy is not strong enough, that woman is not emotional enough, that woman should be dressing up like this, that person should be going out like this, why are they putting makeup on their face, why are they dressing this way? So we have so many questions about everybody around us. We might, even in our siblings, we might find faults. So I would like for you to ask yourself, what is this normal that we are talking about? There are 7 billion people on this planet. And have you seen, I mean, except for twins, have you seen anybody who has the same face as yours? Do you feel like there might be a person that would have the same face as yours? No, most probably not. So 7 billion people on the planet, with all with unique faces, how do you think that anybody would be the same? Nobody can fit in the whole idea of normal. Even with me, when I was in class 6, I had short hair, and I am a student of an army public school, right? And it was a co-ed school. But when I went to that school, and because I had short hair and because I was growing up, I was called, oh look, this is a boy dressed up as a girl. Look at her short hair. Who will call her a girl? So, and right now I also have short hair, right? But nobody calls me like that, maybe because I am confident enough, I know, and I know that I should not feel bad about it. So both Rupa and I have short hair over here, hair that usually boys are supposed to have. So do you think that it is right to tag people like this, tag people like normal? Am I not a normal woman? If I do not have long hair, I am. I fit into the idea of normal. Who defines this normal for you? You need to question yourself about this, right? Like Rupa talked about being a part of the rainbow. We're all over the rainbow. We can be any color that we choose to be at any day, and so we can look like anything. Have you not heard that Salman Khan had long hair, or MS Dhoni had long hair? Or have you not seen a woman in a pantsuit? Have you not seen a woman dressing up in clothes that might feel like they are made for boys, but anybody can wear them, right? So as Sainik school students, I want you to think about women serving in the defense forces. It's not like they have been allowed only right now to be serving in the defense forces, right? They have always been a part of the defense forces. Even though it was in short commission, we know that women can fight. Their armies all over the world have women in their armies fighting in a position, right, as equal as men. We know about historical figures in India like Jhansi ki Rani and Razia Sultan, who were amazing fighters, who were strong women, who waged a war against whoever came against them. And so I want you to think about why it would have happened that girls might not have been allowed in your school, and all of a sudden they are being allowed, right? It was not like only today girls have gotten equipped and they've learned sports and now they can be a part of your schools, right? It has been a long time coming, and the feminist movement and because we have been fighting for equity, is to is the one that has been made this possible. We see here officers passing out from their training at the academy, or the three women fighter pilots that were encrypted in the air force a few years back. And we know for a fact that all of these stereotypes that we talk about are all in our mind and all made up by the society around us, but they are not true. We can break through those stereotypes. If we don't want to be strong, we cannot be strong. And if we want to be strong, we can be strong despite of where we stand, how we were born as, if we are a man, woman, if we are a trans person, we can do anything that we feel like. Here, I would also like to talk to you about this concept called intersectionality, right? At this point of time, we've heard a lot about how India is is all represents unity in diversity. We have so many things that we talk about. We have religion, we have age, we have skin color, we have regions, we have caste. In addition to that, we have gender, we have physical abilities and qualities, we have our caste, our creed, where how much we have studied, where we belong in the how much money our parents are earning, right? So we all are from different diverse backgrounds, and nothing can put us in one place. I might be a 23-year-old who is a woman who does not like dress like a usual woman, who does not have hair like a usual woman. I am able bodied, so this is also something that we need to talk about. When we talk about disabilities, do we not think about Stephen Hawking being able to do a lot of things? Do we not talk about Paralympic athletes who can do sports better than any of us? So we need to think about what we are talking about when we are making stereotypes. And we need to know that we all stand at different intersections, at different crossroads of different identities. We may be from one gender, but we might belong to a different religion from the person who's standing right next to us or studying with us. And so when we talk about being in one place, being one stereotype, being part of one stereotype, what are we even talking about, right? So, moving towards the end of our presentation, I would like to talk about how can you and I both fight gender stereotypes. We can check our baggage. We can see where we are coming from. What have we done? Have we made comments on anybody? Can we rectify those mistakes? Can we go to those persons and say, I made this comment about you, and I know that you felt bad about it. I am sorry. We need to educate ourselves. This session itself is educative, right? We need to read more, we need to talk more about it, right? We need to challenge ourselves. We should do things that we think we cannot do, but surely we can do it. I, for one, always thought that I am not made for sports because the gender stereotypes told me to. But now I have learned boxing and I'm a good boxer, right? Wherever we see a problem, we should point it out. The pandemic has in ways told us how everything can happen in one place, in one home, right? Your mothers might be working and they might be coming back and taking care of you, and your fathers might just be working, or vice versa, your fathers might be helping your mother and everything. In case you feel like there is something that does not feel right, there is something about a stereotype that you want to be challenged, you should point it out. You should challenge others to think outside of the box, think outside of the stereotypes. Next, we should make no assumptions. We should not think that this person, I don't think they can do anybody. You only think about it. If a person cannot see from their eyes, if you look at them from afar, will you be able to tell that they cannot see, they cannot talk? Maybe they are much more intelligent than you, maybe they are so much better at sports, right? So what are we even talking about? We should practice, practice, practice. We should bring all of these, whatever we've learned in environment like these, whatever we learned from outside, and we should practice it. If you think it is right, you should definitely practice it. We should be a living example. When we as Sainik school students aspire to become a part of the army, there are a lot of things that the training talks about. There are officer like qualities that is talked about the most. Who is an officer? An officer can be anybody, and somebody serving in the army, as most of you might be aspiring to serve in the army, do you think that only being strong and physically strong would help you do well in the army? No, you have to respect everybody who is around you, not just the ones who are senior to you, but also your peers and ones those who are helping you do the job better. So we should be a living example of, not just when we go into the army, but before that. Only then will we be able to get into the army in the first place. And you should give it a try. You should think about whatever you've learned today, whatever we've talked about today, and think where you went wrong, where you can do better, what all you can do, right? And you should show your support in whatever manner you can. So if you see a person who wants to dress a certain way but people around them are not letting them, you should stand up for them. You should be there for them, because you are students, you are the future, right? And you should make sure that anybody around you feels safe in whatever way you can make a safe environment for them. And the last part about how you can make a change and fight gender stereotypes is that you're here, you're listening to us, you're learning with us, and that is the most important. You are willing to learn and you're willing to listen. um just that. And if you feel like there is somebody, and if any sort of question comes up in your mind, how can I do this, how can I help someone do this, remember that we should always break out of these stereotypes, break out of this patriarchy that we talk about often, and break out and help others break out of these shackles and make an equal and equitable world. Thank you so much for listening to us. That is it with for our presentation. Um, uh, we thank Sainik Schools for giving us the opportunity, and we look forward to your questions in the comment section below. Or you can also send us questions on our email ID, ijazatfoundation@outlook.com. Thank you so much for listening to both of us, Rupa and I. We were really happy to be here with you and talk to students, and it was an honor. Thank you, everybody.